What is going on, guys, and welcome back to TCG Madness. And in today's video we are going to be taking a look at another budget deck profile for Star Wars Unlimited. Now recently we did about 3 villain decks, and this time we're going to touch up now a little bit more on the heroism side. And in today's deck profile we have none other than Chewbacca the Walking Carpet, which utilizes Sentinel and Grit. I'm going to go ahead and get to the deck profile here in just a second. Before we do all that, if you guys can do me the really big favor of please hitting that like button. If you're new, consider hitting that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you guys never miss a video. And also to comment on this video and let me know what you guys think about this deck. You think it's a good deck? Were there certain cards that I missed? I'm going to go over some pros and cons of the deck at the end as well. And then in next video, I will actually play this deck on a felt table, and I'll show you guys how this deck is supposed to be properly run, why it's a good deck. I actually believe that this may be the best budget deck that I've built to date. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the deck itself. It utilizes, like I said, Chewbacca the Walking Carpet. His front side has tap, play a unit that costs 3 or less. That unit gets Sentinel for this phase. Now, I will say I don't utilize this front ability as much as I probably should. It doesn't really come in handy as much, but it is a good way to also make sure that if you don't want Chewie to get hit first, you can actually play something out with Sentinel before he gets played, or play something out in the space section for Sentinel as well that costs 3 or less, because there's plenty of cheap space units in this deck that cost 3 or less that can actually use Sentinel. You also notice too in this deck, we have a lot of Sentinel because you do want to protect Chewie at some point as well, but not too early. And again, I'll show you some more gameplay of how this deck works. I'll play against a couple of decks. I'll play against decks that are very good against this deck, and I'll play decks that are, I can actually beat and utilize very well. You'll see how this deck runs and what decks it's good against and what decks are good against it as well. So the backside is where things get really fun. So once you deploy Chewie, which you have to have 7 resources, he is a 2/9, so that 9 health really comes in handy because he does have Sentinel and Grit. And if you don't know what Grit is, it's a great ability. So first off, let's talk about Sentinel a little bit. Sentinel basically says it's a bodyguard. Like, you can't attack my base unless you have to deal with the thing that has Sentinel first. But the Grit is where this thing really comes in handy. So as soon as you deploy Chewie, your opponent has to deal with him. So what you kind of want to do with this deck too, and you'll see as, some of the cards that I'm going to show off in this deck, you want to have just a couple of ground units first to kind of protect Chewie if possible. But really what you want is you want your opponent to hit you with Chewie, or Chewie can hit him as well. So it's a 2/9 with Sentinel, and then it has the Grit. It gets a +1 for each damage on it. So right away, it's really good. Chewie is going to get hit a lot. The best thing about blue is it has some really good cards, some unique upgrades to actually help protect even further. So we'll talk about some of those as well. So that is the leader. We're running very standard chopper base, 30 health. You do need a 30 health base for this one because the one big con about this deck is a slow running deck. A little bit more about that later. So the deck itself, let's get to the meat and potatoes. So first up, we have Leia Organa Defiant Princess, the 2-drop for a 2/2. It also has, when played, either ready a resource or exhaust a unit. This card is one of the best cards. I love this card so much because it's so multi-diverse. So you can play it, untap a resource, which is like pseudo ramp, or you can play it and tap down something of your opponent's, which is really good because that comes in handy, especially if there's some big body out there. Like Chewie's already been taking some shots. There's another big body that's going to actually end Chewie's life. Hey, play Leia, tap it down. Now you got another shot with Chewie, and you do want to get the initiative a lot with this deck too. That's something also to note. So of course we have Chewie the Walking Carpet, but we still need more Chewies because more Chewies are better, right? So let's go with Chewbacca Loyal Companion. 5-drop, 3/6, and has Sentinel, which is excellent, but this Sentinel's a little differently. When this unit is attacked, you get to ready him. Then again, we have some really cool upgrades that can actually benefit from that. So when he's getting attacked, you can immediately ready him up and you can swing either right back at your opponent or you can swing right back at your opponent's base, which is excellent as well. Oh, and by the way, Leia, 3 copies, Chewie, 2 copies. I guess you should get a little better at naming how many copies. But let's go with 3 copies of Yoda, the Old Master. Love this card as well, too. Very cheap, cost efficient, and on your wallet, it's very cheap as well. 3 copies of this. It's a 3-drop for a 2/4 with Restore 2. With this blue deck, Restore, I think, is the most I'm not gonna say underrated, but I think in Star Wars Unlimited, I think Restore is the best ability so far. Restoring is so powerful in this game to actually be able to heal your base. And again, blue does it the best. And it also has some extra event cards that can actually help you as well. So blue just does a really good job of healing, which is something that we like in this game. Also has 2, when defeated, choose any number of players. They each draw a card. that's a good thing because you can just choose yourself and you can draw a card. So you get some extra advantage when Yoda passes away. So 3 copies of that one. Let's go with 2 copies of the Cloud City Wing Guard. 3-drop, 2/4, has Sentinel. Pretty straightforward. You do want extra Sentinel to defend some other things, especially if you're trying to either defend Chewie or defend something like a Yoda, an Old Master. So next up, we have 2 copies of the Consular Security Force. I like this card a lot. It's a 3/7. That 7 health is so good because that can really help out too. And again, I wish this was a 3-drop. I wish it was like a 3/6 that it had 3-drop. And then you can give it Sentinel. That would be really good, but it's still good for a 3/7 because, you know, dishing out 3 damage, nothing to sneeze at. 2 copies of that one, pretty straightforward. Let's go with 2 copies of Wing Leader. It's a 2/1, cost 3. When played, give 2 experience tokens to another friendly rebel unit. I like that because experience tokens, +1/+1, pretty good there. Again, it's 3 drops, so it's cost efficient. This is also a good candidate to activate with Chewie's front ability to give this Sentinel because it's just a chum blocker that can boost up something else. So pretty good there. That was 2 copies of that one. Next up, we're going to go with 3 copies of Alliance X-Wing. This is also another good space unit. 2-drop, that's a 2/3. Again, you do need some space units. I think that's one thing that this deck does focus on. It's not the best in the air. It's really good on the ground. Next up, we have Restored Arc. Again, 3 copies of this one for a 2-drop. That's cost efficient on both your wallet and in the game. It's a 2/3 with Restore 1. Love, love, love this card a lot. This is actually a candidate that you don't want to have Sentinel on because you don't want your opponent attacking this one. You actually want to protect some of these because, again, if you swing at your opponent 2 or 3 times, you just healed yourself for 2 or 3 damage. That's actually pretty good. So 3 copies of that one. We also have 1 copy of Vigilant Honor Guards. This is a 5-drop, that's a 4/6. It has Sentinel, but it only has Sentinel as long as this thing is not attacked. So the second this thing takes damage, it loses a Sentinel, which is why we do pick 1 copy. This card can get you in and out of a pinch. Like if you just have nothing else and you need to protect something, you can slap this out there. Now your base is protected for at least 1 attack on the ground. So still pretty good. Again, 1 copy of that one, but we have 2 copies of General Dodonna. It's a 4-drop, 4/4, which is really powerful. It's a 4/4, but it has other friendly rebel units get +1/+1. So that is boosting up all your rebel units across the board, and we do have a lot of rebel units in this deck. So pretty good card there. So definitely 2 copies of. Speaking of rebel units, how about 2 copies of a 3-drop Rogue Operative? 2/4 Saboteur. When this unit attacks, ignore Sentinel and defeat the defender's shield. Pretty good. And it has Raid 2. When this unit attacks, it gets +2/+0, so it becomes a 4/4 when attacking. Good thing because it has Saboteur, so that can get you out of the Sentinel and Defender Shields positions. And you are doing a lot of attacking in this deck anyways, because you're always just, I mean, first of all, Star Wars Unlimited does a lot of attacking. That's how you defeat your opponent's base. So to have something that when it attacks does 4 damage instead of 2, it's pretty good actually. When your opponent attacks it though, it's only going to do 2 damage back, but that's okay. Still a pretty good card. Now we get into a little more stronger card here. How about 2 copies of a 6-drop Obi-Wan Kenobi? It's a 4/6 with Sentinel. That's pretty good. But the better part of this is when defeated, give 2 experience tokens to another friendly unit. If it's a Force unit, draw a card. The Force unit, we don't really have a lot. You could, but for a budget deck, you can't have a lot because the Force units are a little more expensive, specifically talking about Luke Skywalker. Still a pretty good card, though, for a 6-drop. It's a 4/6 with Sentinel. These are one of the cards that you want to drop as soon as you can, and this can actually help you get to that win. Dropping him and then dropping Chewie on your next turn, like if you have 6 and you just drop him, that's really good. You do what you got to do. You swing maybe at your opponent's base or something, or maybe you take out some of their units. Then you gain the initiative, and then on the next turn you play Chewie. Now you have 2 Sentinels out. Obi-Wan will probably be close to being, you know, gone, but that's okay because then you can give those 2/2/+1/+1 tokens to a Chewbacca that you just played this turn, making Chewie really, really strong. I mean, when I played this deck so far on the felt table, I mean, I'll be losing early on, and then once I get Chewie out, I go right back into aggressive mode, and I end up winning the game pretty quickly because you can get Chewie really high up there as far as his power, and all you have to do is just swing once or twice with like a 10-drop Chewie at that point, a 10-power Chewie, and then, you know, it's pretty much just game over at that point. There's nothing your opponent can do. All you have to do is try to prolong the defeat of yourself, of course. That's when Restore comes in very handy. So 2 copies of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now we're going to get into some really cool upgrades. First off, we have a 1-drop Resilient. Gives you +0/+3 for health. That is very, very critical. You put this on Chewie, Chewie goes from 9 health to 12 health. That's going to be really difficult for your opponent to get. Plus, it has Sentinel, so if all your opponent's units just keep smacking Chewie, let's say he hits you with a Stormtrooper, let's say he hits you with a 2-drop droid or a 4-drop, I don't know, Vader or something like that, or something crazy, hits you with like a 6-drop Vader, let's just say. Well, 6-drop, that means you still have a fresh Chewie that still has 6 health. And now Chewie has 8 power, so now you just smack right into your opponent with an 8-drop. I mean, that's going to be very, very hard to overcome. Putting Resilient on Chewie, excellent. These upgrades are really for the big body Sentinel. So think of Obi-Wan Kenobi, think of the guards, the Sentinel guards, even the other wing troopers that we had. They're all going to now go from like 6 to 7 health. They're all going to go from either 9 to 10, and in Chewie's case to 12. So it's really good. Even putting this on Yoda would be very good, because now Yoda has 7. And if you can swing at your opponent twice with Yoda, not only do you get to draw a card when he passes away, but now you just healed yourself for 4 damage. It's really good. These are small little things that you can do that can really prolong and help your units get a little more bang for their buck, so to speak. Next up, and there's 2 copies of that one. Next up is 3 copies of this card, which I love this card. This is Electro Staff. You attach it to Chewie, and when your opponent attacks at your Chewie, while attached unit is defending, the attacker gets -1, -0. So if a unit has 3 power and is hitting Chewie, well, now he's going to hit him with 2. The reason why this is a good card, too, it helps prolong Chewie's health. See, once Chewie gets a hit or 2 on him, you want to do everything in your power to try to like put Resilient, put Electro Staff on him, put all these things on there that A, boosts his health and boosts his power, but also protect him as well. So by giving this to him, now if your opponent was trying to swing at you, let's say you had 4 health left on Chewie, and he has a 4-drop something that has 4 power. Well, now you put this on there, now he's only going to do 3 to you, and now you just gained another turn with Chewie, and now you can really just keep prolonging him. Excellent card for Chewie, and again, these are all just really good, cost-efficient cards. Now we're also going to get some more space units. We got a 4-drop System Patrol Craft, 2 copies of this one. It's a 3/4 with Sentinel. Again, pretty good there. Sentinel just being a very good in this game. 1 copy of Azatuk Liberator Gunship. It's a 3/4 with Ambush. Again, space units, they're not the best, so we're really trying to find some really good, fun space units that can actually help. Ambush, really good too, especially with all these Sentinels and stuff like that. You really just, if your opponent's hitting you with something, they're going to take some damage one way or another. If you're playing this, get that Ambush out, can really surprise your opponent. Just 1 copy, nothing crazy. Another event, we have 2 copies of a 1-drop Repair, heals 3 damage to your unit's base. Again, it's very, very good, because healing 3 from your base, just really good. It's, again, more restore and stuff like that. Again, one thing, this is a slow-running deck, so it takes a little bit. By turn 6 and 7, that's when your deck kind of turns on. So you really got to do everything you can to prolong it. Aggressive decks are the best against this deck. I can tell you that right now. 2 copies of a 5-drop Vanquish. Real simple. Destroy something that's not a non-leader unit. I like that. It's good to just get rid of something. A lot of these events now, you'll see they kind of have a little bit of a theme. We need to get rid of some things with protecting ourselves as well. So other ones that I like, Shoot First, 2 copies. This is something I would probably put the 3 at some point, because I really do think this card is so good in this deck. Attack with a unit, it gets +1/+0 for this attack, and deals its combat damage before the defender. Essentially, if you're Magic the Gathering fans, you know what this sounds like. This is basically, it's giving it first strike. If the defender is defeated, it deals no combat damage back to you, which is really good, because if Chewie is up there, or some other units that have Sentinel are really high up there on power, you can put this on there, smack into your opponent with something, get rid of something that you wanted to, and this way you take no damage back in return. It's pretty good there. And then 1 copy of an event of Asteroid Sanctuary, 2-drop, exhaust an enemy unit, give a shield token to a friendly unit that costs 3 or less. Pretty good there, especially this goes really good with Yoda as well. This is basically like another version of Princess Leia right here. So, keep going on here. We got 2 copies of a 1-drop R2-D2. When played or on attack, look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on the bottom of your deck, otherwise leave it on top. Like this card, because you're pretty much just going to, you're tutoring out cards from your deck. You're looking at the top, okay, do I want to draw this? Do I need this card right now? No, I don't. Okay, put on the deck. This card has actually saved me in a couple of games that I played on Felt Table as well. And of course, he goes paired really well with C-3PO. If you can get these 2 in your opening hand, and you can pretty much pick through your deck fast, man, your deck runs really, really well. And getting to that turn 6 and 7 makes everything so much better, because then you know what you want, and you probably can get it soon. So when played on attack, choose a number, then look at the top card of your deck. If it costs If its cost is the chosen number, you may reveal it and draw it. Again, if you pair him with R2-D2, it's an excellent card. Next up, we have 2 copies of a Rebel Pathfinder. 2-drop, 2/3, Saboteur. When this unit attacks, ignore Sentinel. This is something I might get rid of out of the deck and put something else in, maybe like another space unit. I'm not sure yet. So far, this deck seems to be pretty good. I think this is the best budget deck I can make so far. And then one of my favorite cards in this deck, actually the best card in my opinion in this deck. And I say that because this Chewbacca is really bad against aggressive decks. But if you can get rid of the big boss cards in those aggressive decks, you could win the game potentially. This card can easily help you out with that. Look at your opponent's hand and discard a card from it. If there is something that you know you cannot get around, or you know that's going to actually hurt Chewbacca, and you're not going to be able to have as many turns as you like with him, this card right here can get you out of that jam real quick. I love this card so much for an event, to just look at your opponent's hand and say, nope, not this card, get it out of here. Because there's not a lot of cards that bring things out of the discard pile back into their hand or into their deck. So it's a great card. Really, really like that a lot. So that is the deck. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section. This deck, however, will run you $36.20. Now, I told you some of the pros and cons of this deck. Some of the pros of this deck is a very, very powerful deck when you get Chewbacca online. There's not a lot of things that can deal with something that has Sentinel and Grit at the same time. Another good thing about this deck, too, is it's a great way to... It's a great comeback deck. You will lose early with this deck, man, and your opponent thinks he's going to win. Once you start dropping Chewie and you put an upgrade or 2 on him, there's no way they can come back from it. There's just nothing that can deal with Chewbacca, especially being the leader. Not a lot of things that say destroy your leader. Actually, there's 0 things that say destroy leader. So getting him out, getting him exactly on turn 7, putting him online, putting an upgrade on him, and forcing your opponent to hit Chewbacca, really, really good. Another good thing about this deck, too, is the Restore Blue in this deck. Man, Blue's got a lot of good restoring cards, a lot of good healing cards, so you really can prolong. So it's a good combination right there between slow running, but you can heal a lot, so you can come back pretty quickly from this. It's also, I think, one of the best budget deck profiles that you can make. I think Chewbacca's perfect for all newcomers. He's a lot of fun to play with, so definitely, those are the pros. The cons. The cons are that this deck is really bad against aggressive decks. Really, really bad against aggressive decks. The more aggressive a deck is, the harder it is to win with this deck. And that's just because it's a slow-moving deck. The other con is that it does suffer in the air. So if some opponent has a really good air game, man, it is very, very difficult. I will show you some gameplay of exactly what I'm talking about, because I actually came across a couple of aggressive decks recently, and man, they suffer. But that's what you kind of expect when you're running a $36 deck versus a $180 deck. That's going to happen. So this is a great budget deck profile, but that's pretty much all I have for the pros and cons of this. It's right under the $40 mark, $4 under, all things considered. I'm going to show you guys now some cards that if you were to just break the bank, these are some cards that you should easily throw in there, and you can see why. First up, you would definitely want to add Luke Skywalker, and if the card you would want to take out would probably be Obi-Wan Kenobi, maybe just leave 1 copy of him in, but you definitely would add at least 2 to 3 copies of a Luke Skywalker. He is a very powerful 7-drop that also is a 6/7 and has Restore 3, and when an enemy unit, or when played, give an enemy unit -3/-3 for this phase. If a friendly unit was defeated this phase, give that enemy unit -6/-6. Very, very powerful card. But you can see why this isn't in the deck already. It's 43 bucks. Next up, speaking of space units, if you really want to correct the space units in this deck, this is definitely one way to go. This is a more expensive version of it, but this card is still pretty pricey. You would definitely put in at least 3 copies of Millennium Falcon. Very, very good card. 3-drop, 3/4. This unit enter play is ready, so it basically has pseudo ambush. Basically is ambush, but where this thing suffers from is when you ready cards during the regroup phase, you have to pay 1 to keep it around. Otherwise, return it to your owner's hand, which is not bad, because you can constantly just bounce it back to your hand and just keep playing it over and over again if you just don't want to pay that 1. So, pretty good. Definitely add another copy of Spark of Rebellion. We noticed in the last deck we added 2 copies because, the budget would not permit it at $6.50. Definitely think 3 copies of this would definitely work if you were breaking the bank. Now, these 2 cards I added in as well. These next 2, These would definitely be good cards to put on your sideboard if you notice that your opponent has a very, very aggressive deck. This is definitely one way to counterbalance that very aggressive deck, and that would be to give your deck 3 copies of Devotion, +1/+1, plus Restore 2. That right there is good. You put this on Yoda, now Yoda has Restore 4. That's very good. If for nothing else, if you could just swing with Yoda one time by putting this on him, I mean, that's worth it to me. Any unit that's on the ground, put this on him, give it Restore 2. It's good enough if you swing once or twice. If you're fortunate enough to swing 2 or 3 times, now you just restored yourself 4 and 6. Very, very good. Restore, the best ability in my opinion in Star Wars Unlimited. And then, of course, the last thing I would definitely add, I would just add 1 copy of Vigilance. Yes, I know we're running a blue and yellow, which means that you still have to pay the tax for this card, but it's worth it if you put 1 copy. If you have 6 resources down, and you were to pay the additional 2 because you kind of would have to, unless, of course, you wanted to change your base and change up the entire deck and make a mono blue deck, totally can do that too, but I still think for your sideboard, this would be good enough to put 1 copy in. I mean, just look at all that you get to do. So you choose 2 in any order. Discard 6 cards from your opponent's deck. Okay, that's cool, though. Heal 5 damage from your base. Right there, that is really, really good. Healing 5 right there, excellent. Defeating a unit with 3 or less remaining HP. Boom, right there. Now, those 2 abilities are the ones you're probably going to pair up the most, and that right there, to me, is worth paying the 6. So if you have 6 resources and you're healing 5 and defeating something, I mean, that's really good. Or heal 5, and then you give yourself a shield token to a unit. You would pay 6 all day, every day, and twice on Sunday to do 2 out of the 3 on that last one. Whether it's heal 5 and defeating something for 3, or healing 5 and giving a shield unit. You would pay 6 all day. If it said pay 6 and choose any of these 2, 2 out of the 3, and it was just those 3 and you remove the top one, you'd pay it and it'd be worth the money. So that's what I'm saying. It's a really, really good card to play. Definitely would have it in your sideboard or in your main deck as well. And that is going to do it. That is it for this deck profile. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you did, again, please hit that like button. If you want to see more of this type of content, comment down below. If you guys think I missed anything, please, by all means, let me know. And next upcoming videos, I will actually be playing with this deck, and I'll be showing you guys some gameplays of decks that work really well against it, and the decks that work bad against you as well. So this way, if you really want to dive into this deck a little bit more, you can see what kind of decks you would be favored against and what decks would probably beat you the most. This way you can kind of game plan, get your sideboard ready, and really kind of dive deep into this. Because I do think Chewbacca is definitely one of those like B to A tiers as far as leaders go. Like if you were to tell me what the power level is of this deck between 1 through 10, I'd probably say this is a 7.5, almost an 8. This deck is actually really powerful. You can actually beat some of the most higher valued decks with this budget deck right here. But again, you just suffer against a lot of the aggressive decks. That's all it takes to kind of beat you. And I'll show you some gameplay of that. So hope you guys are excited for that. Probably be dropping that video here in the next couple of days or 2. Again, go check out some of my other content. If you're new, consider hitting that subscribe button. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time.